Hey everyone, in this video we're going to look at a dihybrid cross. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, I recommend watching the video on monohybrid crosses before continuing with this one. In addition to his monohybrid cross experiments, Mendel wanted to test if allele combinations related to different characters were inherited together or separately. For example, he chose to look at the color and shape of seeds from his pea plants. As with the monohybrid crosses, his parent generation were homozygous, but this time they were homozygous for both genes. The seeds from one plant were always yellow and round, and from the other plant they were green and wrinkled. And what Mendel was trying to figure out was if these combinations would always stay together, or if they could mix and match, so that sometimes the seeds would be yellow and wrinkled, or green and round. When we do one of these crosses, we have to remember to include the two alleles for each gene. In this example, Y represents color, with yellow being dominant to green, and R represents shape, with round being dominant to wrinkled. The gametes from these parents would have to contain one Y and one R, but since the parents are homozygous, there's only one possible gamete that each can make. And there's then only one possible combination of alleles in the F1 offspring. They would all be heterozygous for Y and heterozygous for R, since they inherited the dominant allele for each from one parent and a recessive allele for each from the other. Now, it gets more complicated when we get to the F2 generation, since a dihybrid can produce 4 gamete types, either Y with either R. Now, this is rooted in the law of independent assortment, which we talked about when we looked at meiosis, but we'll review it in a moment to see how it all fits together. Our offspring then have 4 times 4, or 16 possible genotype combinations. But as with the monohybrid cross, some genotypes produce the same phenotype. In fact, in our 16 genotypes, we actually only have 4 phenotypes. We have 9 combinations that produce an individual has 2 dominant traits, so round yellow seeds. 3 who are dominant for shape, but not color, so green round seeds. 3 who are dominant for color, but not shape, so yellow wrinkled seeds. And just 1 that is recessive for both, green and wrinkled. And this 9:3:1 ratio is typical of a dihybrid cross, and tells us that the genes underwent independent assortment during meiosis 1. Let's quickly recap independent assortment so we can see how it results in these different gamete combinations. For genes to undergo independent assortment, they have to be on different chromosomes, since those on the same chromosome will most likely be inherited as a pair. There are situations where they can be separated, but we'll look at that in another video. In this example, we can have a situation where our dominant Y and dominant R line up on the same side during metaphase 1, destined for the same daughter cell. When the cell divides, we get 2 gamete types, either both dominant or both recessive alleles. It's equally likely, however, that the R's could line up the other way around, the recessive R ending up with the dominant Y and vice versa, resulting in gametes containing 1 dominant and 1 recessive allele. Since there's nothing to govern the orientation of one homologous pair relative to the other during metaphase 1, these events are equally likely to happen, giving us a 25% chance of each of these gametes being produced and then fertilized in the subsequent cross, resulting in the 16 possible genotype combinations we saw in the cross, since each of the 4 gametes is equally likely from either parent. Thanks for watching, and if you haven't had a chance to check them out yet, please watch the other videos on Mendelian inheritance.